when those poor countries start to get money and women are empowered, one would assume that the discrimination against young girls and against baby girls especially would go down, right? Because you've got education, you've got more money flowing. But it turns out that is not the case.
Wow.
She has actually discovered that educated, independent-minded women share the prejudice and favor boys, even when they have the means to protect their girls.
That must be the cultural lag. You know, I mean, there has to be a certain amount of lag before everything kicks in.
That is her point. Her point is that economic conditions actually worsen the problem to some degree because in some areas, poor countries are so poor that they don't even have the money to abort baby girls. So they just have them. And unfortunately, the girls aren't well taken care of. But when the money comes into the place, there's even a greater practice of discrimination because now they have the means to take actions and the means to take care of doing selective birth. And so it is curious. She certainly makes a point that after some time and after that economic condition is there for some time, it tends to rebound, right? The populations tend to rebound and level off. Korea is one example of where this has happened. But still very, very sad that women of all people can perpetuate this practice even when they have a little bit more financial means. Very sad.
The culture decides so many times how you behave. I'll give you an example. Janmashtami was a couple of weeks ago, right? In India, the rush to get the babies born on Janmashtami is so great that people were getting cesarean sections.
Oh my God.
Booked 4 or 5 months ahead of time to make sure that they have the hospital space. One of the doctors was saying that generally he does one C-section operation a day. He was doing 4 that day. Wow. So you talk about culture. You know, they think that that's the reincarnation of Krishna, any child that's born. Culture is an extremely important, and to move the culture, it takes years and years and years.
Right. So in other words, her point and your point is exactly valid, that the influx of money isn't enough to change those circumstances.
That's
it really is a cultural shift that's required, and that takes much more time.
An important legislation is being discussed in the state of Virginia that is called yoga teachers need to have a license. And that's got everybody who's teaching yoga up in arms. And all they're saying is, that's a ridiculous idea. But a note of caution to all of you who teach at the temples. Once it is discussed that you got to have a license, remember, if anybody got hurt, you will be holding a lot of lawsuits. So be careful and make sure that the teachers you use have license. Now, they did this in New York. You know, in New York, they say $50,000 fine if we find you teaching without a proper license. Well, it didn't fly. You know, people wrote to the governor and got it out. But licensing has been in Michigan, and it's going to be in Virginia. So all of you who teach, try to get the license, because in this particular profession, you know, injury can happen.
It's not just that. I think it's also about being competitive. You know, there's a lot of con artists out there who will call stretches yoga without really, following the proper process and procedures that go along with yoga. If you're licensed, it's one way of telling the world that, hey, you have the proper training to be able to do this as well.
That's right. So those of you who really don't think this is a good idea, you have a chance to protest. There's a Facebook page for yoga. Go there.
Well, sticking to health for just a second, here's a good article out of Men's Health magazine, Ways for Men to Stay Young.
Yes.
Did you know, for example...
I can use that.
You're always young. Did you know that men, by shaving, actually help themselves look younger because they exfoliate a lot of the skin in the process?
That's right.
And did you know that men, as they get older, actually should keep shorter hair, because that helps the hair to look fuller and thicker, as opposed to, if you're losing hair, it can look quite thin if you keep it longer. And of course, you should get plenty of sleep, because that matters. And here's something interesting. You should try to be with people who are not like yourself. In other words, opposites attract. It's good to find people with opposing personalities because it exercises your brain, and that keeps you younger.
Fight it out.
That's right. And of course, eating a healthy breakfast, if anything, will help you prevent from accumulating that belly fat.
Yes.
But
protein helps.
Protein helps.
Yeah.
But, men are also prone to the same problems that women are. As women get older, of course, gravity starts to take a hold on certain body parts.
Yes.
And the same thing can happen to men and their particular body parts. And it happens because of a very scientific reason. Plaque builds up in the arteries. We know this.
Yes.
But do you know where it builds up first? I'll give you one guess for men.
I guess the men's parts have arteries too.
That's right, and they can get clogged up, and that's why it's sometimes okay to get on medication to help there, because it just releases blood flow into those vessels and keeps things working like they should. So these are just a few tips on how men can stay young and working in perfect order.
Is Donald Trump in perfect order nowadays? 3 times he declared bankruptcy on his casino, but now he has opted to buy it out as a private company, $100 million. If he does it, he'll be the first one to have ever come out of what they call Chapter 33, meaning if you go bankrupt under Chapter 11,
so there's 11,
3 times.
There's 13, and then there's 30.
No. First time you go bankrupt, Chapter 11. Next time you go bankrupt, same company, Chapter 22, as Chapter 33. If he comes out of it, folks, he will be the genius. It is very rare anyone has ever come out of that. So I say, go ahead, take his money, and let's see if the man is what the man says he is.
Well, he's got his hands full with that Miss Universe pageant. I don't know if you saw it this past weekend, but there was some controversy between the countries of Bolivia and Peru regarding these elaborate outfits that the girls wear during the opening scene, where they come out to represent